Welcome to Programming with Qt Widgets. I'm Jesper Pedersen. In the previous episode, we watched how Qt Signal slots mechanism work. In this episode, we will see how it did work in Qt4, but I will tell you quite a bit of things about Qt5, so do stay tuned for this episode too. And a super fast recap here. What are we talking about? Signals and slot, ways for objects to communicate with each other. And remember, we saw the 4 fingers for our connect method, which object is emitting the signal, which signal is being emitted, which slot or which object is implementing the slot, and which slot are we talking about. And now to the Qt4 way of doing it. You'll notice here on the slide that it looks exactly like it did in the Qt4 way, except, or the Qt5 way, except that it says const sharp pointer signal here. And that is the core problem we were facing back then. Namely that it was basically just a string. If I wrote hello world in that string and without anything else, there was no snowball's chance in hell that it would recognize that this was not a valid signal signature at compile time. At runtime it did, and we'll see that throughout a few examples here. In addition to that, to take that and make it, I could have just wrote quote like a regular string, but back then I had something that was very, very seldomly used, which was signal to signal emissions. And so one object emitting a signal, whenever that happened, then another object, or more likely the same object, would emit another signal. I could do that with a signal to signal emission, and therefore I needed to know whether the string was actually for a signal or for a slot. So I could write I would write signal in capital letters, and then the signal name and the type list, the slot and the slot's name and its type list. And if it was a signal to signal, I would have written signal here instead. And that is what it needed to notice. That was why these were not just regular strings, which retrospectively would have been a better idea, I guess. It was painful back then. It was truly painful because you would end up at compile time with a application that compiled just fine. And then at runtime, it would print something out on standard output, but lo and behold, your coworkers would flutter your standard output with debug information, which meant that you never saw your signal slot error message. And you would end up with a signal slot that just didn't work. Sometimes when you saw it, you would see that it says, sorry, the slider here do not have a signal called value changed in value, because you accidentally added this text value here. And you would look on it for half an hour just to realize that, oh my God, I did actually name the parameters here. Of course, I'm not allowed to do that. Value changed is okay-ish to type, but if it was some of your co-workers' object that has some specific signal with weird names, you would usually just cut and paste them out. So that was quite a bit of problem we had back then. What? You don't believe me? I'm the Jesper Pedersen, and you don't believe that? Well, let me show you some code then, okay? So here we have the Signal-Slot Connection using the good old Qt4 style. It's building just perfectly. Can you spot the error? Can you spot the error? Okay, let's run it. It's not working. And the error message is on standard output. Came right up here. No such signal, Q slider value changed int. Now you got it, huh? I misspelled. It should have been value changed int. And if I did that, then it works just fluently. Okay, let's comment that out. Let's do the same error, this time with Qt5 syntax, a pointer to member functions. And while it's compiling now, and why is it taking so much longer? Well, because here it actually needs to compile. Up here, it didn't need to compile because, well, it needs to compile, of course, but it was using C cache, compiler cache, and there's an episode in Qt Widgets on more how to set that up if you're on Linux. I'll give you a link to that in the description below. But here you can see value change is not a member of QSlider. So that one didn't work out. Here's another one. I am trying to connect slider move into setFontFamily QString. And these are not compatible, so therefore I cannot do this. Let's try and run it. And of course it doesn't work because, as it told me, I cannot do that. Now, had this been Qt5 syntax or the pointer to member function syntax, then we would see an error message again saying, I do not know how to convert from integer to QString. And had QString had a constructor that took an integer, then it would have worked, but it unfortunately, or fortunately for many other purposes, do not have that. And then it'll tell me, sorry, signal and slot arguments are not compatible. If you're as old as me, you'll remember how Superman could cut steel with his eyes and see through walls. I cannot give you the power of cutting steel with your eyes, but Gamma Ray, a tool by Qt, can let you see through the walls, or rather look into the binaries of your Qt application. It's the go-to tool for debugging Qt applications. Let me show you an example where it actually does work to convert from one type to the other. And that's what we have here. Again, a slider and a spin box, but this time it's a double spin box. And if I look at the set value here, you can see set value double val. And in case your eyes wander up here, it's QSpinbox. Are you, what, Jesper, QSpinbox? No, it's just because that they had the double spin box in the QSpinbox together with the regular spin box. I am looking at the class Q double spin box, and it takes a double here. The value change that comes out, as you know, is an int value. So that's all as it should be. And I can run it here, and you can see that it works just fine. And now that I know that you do not believe anything I say, let me show you the same thing not working with the Qt4 Signal-Slot Connection. I'll type really fast. Are you ready? There we are. Okay, I had it on the clipboard, so I just pasted it in. I have bet. And it compiled. Well, that's because that's the sneakiness of Qt4. It will compile, but it will not run. Sorry, I cannot change value change int to set value double. And just to prove to you that it's always a very bad idea to like sneak out of the back door and not watch all the episodes, here's some bonus value. How about Jesper? Can you just like not specify this ampersand Q slider : value? After all, it does come from the slider, we know that, and this comes from Q double like this. Could you just write like this? No, that is not how pointer to member functions work. I'm sorry. You'd have to do it the more painful way, but fortunately with our compilers these days. Let me just go here and I'll write ampersand Q slider with our IDEs today, and then I'll press Control Space and it'll complete it to Q slider for me, and : Control Space, and it will suggest, and you can see the symbols here, it'll suggest me all the signals that I have in here, because QCreator obviously know about the signals for the objects that we have in here. Jesper, my mom always told me that there always is a catch. So what's the catch? You're hiding something from us, aren't you? Wasn't things better in the good old Qt days, back in the Qt4 days with the Signal-Slot connections using macros? And you can see I'm stalling time here because yes, it was. There was something that was better back then. It was easier to connect in a few very specific situations. Let me show you what we have here. I have a slider and an integer LCD. This time that's a Q LCD number. That's a very weird widget, but it's in there nevertheless. And let me try and compile this code here. And it will not compile. And it will give you an error message, which is and has been for years very puzzling to many people. It says no function to call QObject connect. So Q slider pointer, that's cool. Void, this stuff here is a pointer to a member function of the class QAbstract slider, a member function that takes an integer and returns nothing. Yeah, That's good enough. And then QLCD number pointer. Okay, cool. And then it comes unresolved overloaded function type. What does that mean? Well, let me show you what it means. If I go here and press F2 on my QLCD number : display, you can see that's actually three versions of display. One taking a QString, one taking an integer, and one taking a tuple. And there is no way for me to write integer. Would have been cool if I could have written like int here, but well, I can. Let me show you. Slot. There we are. Except that I also need it to be the Qt4 syntax for this one up here. Int still. And why slider? Seriously, Jesper? Signal. There we are. Compile and run. And now it runs just fine. But isn't there a way for us to do this without resolving back to Qt4 way of doing it? And of course there is. You can even see it sitting here being ready to run right away. And let's just build it and run it. And you can see, yeah, works just fine. And what does it say here? Are you ready? It says, I'm connecting my slider and the value changed and then the LCD number display, but I am helping my compiler along. I'm talking about the pointer to member function. That's this asterisk here from the QLCD number, the one that doesn't return anything and which takes an integer. That's my static cast here. And trust me, that just flows. No, it doesn't. Back then I needed to Google every single time to find the syntax. There is a better way. If you are using, let me just note here, Qt 5.7 or later. If you're using Qt 5.6 or earlier, well, thank you for watching this episode. But if you're watching Qt 5.7 or later, then there is a better way. But if you're also using a C++ 14 compiler or later, then please mute me now. I'll make some visual noise when you should unmute because I'm going to infect your brain with something that is very difficult to unremember. So, ready? So hopefully I'm muted from most of you while I do like this and compile that in and build it and run it so you can see that actually it works and it works just flawlessly. And what did we have here? The third parameter now was changed to QOverload. Less than int, greater than : off. And that's the : off. And the capital Q there is different from what we'll see shortly. And then the signal or the slot that was overloaded again. And let me just comment this out and comment in this part here while you're all muted. And now visual noise. Hello. Yes, you can come back in. We have another way with Qt 5.7 and a C++ 14 compiler, and both of them or above. And that is to specify QOverload, capital Q, just because, on a lowercase q, just because, mind you. And then the type, and it had display taking 5 parameters, an int and a string, and or whatever, 2 parameters, an int and a QString. I would have written int, QString here in place, just int. So it's just a instantiation of a template that I'm doing here. So QOverload with this stuff here, and then specifying the type. That's it for this episode. We did go a bit further than just talking about Qt4 and how the Qt4 Signal-Slot Connection worked. And remember last episode I told you 80% of the time you'll be doing Qt5 connection, 0% Qt4 connection type, and 20% you'll do it with lambda expressions. And that is the topic in the next video. So until then, stay tuned, have fun, and enjoy life.